Jungkook tossed and turned in his sleep, his brows furrowed deeply as beads of sweat trickled down his temples. Suddenly, his sharp eyes snapped open, his breathing ragged. Still trying to regain his senses, Jungkook sat up and pulled off the blanket covering his body. Glancing at the clock on his nightstand, he let out a heavy sigh. 11:27 p.m. That dream again, he muttered, running a rough hand over his face. He often had nightmares, memories of a past he should no longer recall. His head throbbed slightly, as it always did after those dreams. Wearing his gloves, Jungkook reached for the glass of water on his bedside table. His throat was dry, and his heart was still racing. He needed something to quench his thirst. Unfortunately, the glass was empty. Exhausted after work, he had forgotten to prepare the usual glass of water. The 30-year-old man picked up his phone instead. "Bring warm water to my room, now." His voice was firm as he instructed one of the bodyguards outside. Jungkook was the son of Korea's most infamous mafia leader. His father, Gi-hoon, was a man feared in the underworld. No one dared to cross their family, or they would be eliminated, just as what happened 25 years ago. Back then, a group of enemies conspired to destroy Gi-hoon's life by killing his wife. But Gi-hoon showed no mercy. He wiped them all out, leaving no survivors. That incident shook the Korean mafia world, solidifying Gi-hoon's fearsome reputation. Another nightmare son? Gi-hoon entered the bedroom, holding a glass of warm water. Jungkook, who had been sitting with his head lowered, regulating his breathing, looked up. He offered a faint smile. "Dad, why did you bring me water?" he asked, taking the glass from Gi-hoon's hand. Gi-hoon sat at the edge of the bed, watching his son with a sorrowful gaze as Jungkook downed the drink. His eyes drifted to Jungkook's gloved hands. Letting out a quiet sigh, he finally spoke. "One of the guards was going to bring it to you, but I took over." "Dad, it's late. You shouldn't be staying up," Jungkook muttered disapprovingly. Gi-hoon was already in his 50s, and Jungkook constantly reminded him to take care of his health. "I had some matters to handle. I'll sleep after this," Gi-hoon reassured him with a small smile. Now, Gi-hoon only had Jungkook left. They leaned on each other through everything. Jungkook didn't respond. His head still felt heavy. It would probably take another hour before he could sleep again, if he was lucky. Sometimes after these nightmares, he wouldn't be able to sleep until morning. Gi-hoon looked at his son with concern. "Son, don't you want to get treatment?" "I'm not sick, Dad," Jungkook immediately refuted. "Your body isn't sick, but your mind is. How many times do I have to tell you that you're not okay?" Gi-hoon's voice was laced with frustration. His son was too stubborn. "I've been able to live a normal life until now. That means I'm still fine," Jungkook said, his gaze fixed on the large window beside his bed. He always left the curtains open after a nightmare, to lessen the lingering shadows of his terrifying dreams. "But lately, you've been having nightmares more often." Jungkook fell silent. Gi-hoon was right. Previously, he would only have nightmares 2 or 3 times a month, but recently, they occurred almost every week, sometimes even 2 or 3 times within the same week. "You're still relying on those gloves and antiseptics too," Gi-hoon added with a hint of sorrow. "Dad, I wear these to protect myself from all that filth." Jungkook shuddered as he spoke, imagining the countless bacteria on his hands if he didn't wear gloves. "I could get sick. I can touch things without gloves. I can even shake hands with people, and I'm still perfectly fine. Well, I'm just trying to prevent the worst from happening." Gi-hoon let out a quiet sigh, his eyes drifting toward a framed photo of his late wife, sitting elegantly on the nightstand. A faint smile appeared on his lips. It had been years, yet he still missed her dearly. After Yena's passing, Gi-hoon never considered remarrying. He was content with just Jungkook and his mafia organization. He loved his son deeply, raising him with strict discipline and care. Now, Jungkook had successfully taken full control of the investment and insurance company. Gi-hoon had left him. Yet, something still troubled Gi-hoon, his son's condition. "Son, don't you want to get married?" he asked softly. "How can I think about marriage when I can't even touch the opposite sex?" Jungkook replied flatly. "But if you don't get married, who will inherit all of this when we're gone?" Jungkook fell silent, slightly shaken by his father's words. "We can adopt a child later." "No," Gi-hoon rejected firmly. "I want my own bloodline to inherit everything. I won't let what we built fall into someone else's hands. The only way is for you to get married and have children." "Dad, I don't want to." "What if?" "You have to." Gi-hoon cut him off sharply, his gaze intense. "You need to recover and see a psychiatrist." Jungkook exhaled in frustration. He was exhausted by his own condition. He wanted to be like everyone else, to touch, to interact freely. But no matter how hard he tried, his anxiety never faded. It wasn't as if he hadn't tried. There had been moments when he attempted to touch objects without gloves, only to end up feeling weak and nearly passing out. Dad, is it really necessary? It is. You must do this, son. If you refuse, I will revoke all the facilities and assets I have given you. Jungkook jolted in shock, his expression darkening. You wouldn't have the heart to do that to me. I will, Gi-hoon replied firmly. Jungkook remained silent. Seeing the determination in his father's eyes, he realized Gi-hoon was dead serious. His pale face stiffened. With a deep sigh, Gi-hoon softened his tone. I'm doing this for your own good, son. Please, don't be stubborn. There was nothing Jungkook could do but surrender in the end. I'll find you the best psychiatrist, Gi-hoon said, patting Jungkook's shoulder gently before leaving the room. Jungkook closed his eyes. It would be a lie to say he never wanted to get married, to build a home like his friends had. Deep down, he wanted that too, to live with someone he loved, to have a small family that gave him warmth. But because of his mental illness, his fears always overshadowed his desires. Maybe it was time to break free from his shell. He was already 30 years old. He didn't want to be trapped in this endless anxiety forever. Jungkook sat in his grand office chair, stacks of documents spread out before him, waiting to be reviewed. Every now and then, he massaged his temples and tapped his fingers on the desk. His focus shifted when his personal assistant entered the room, followed by a young woman walking behind him. Jungkook frowned slightly at the unfamiliar presence. Apologies, boss. I'm here to introduce your psychiatrist, Kai announced. Yesterday, Gi-hoon had assigned him the task of finding the best psychiatrist for Jungkook. Jungkook nodded. Thank you. You may leave. Kai bowed respectfully before exiting, leaving Jungkook alone with the psychiatrist. Please, have a seat, Jungkook offered. The young woman smiled warmly before settling into the chair across from him. She had heard rumors about the strikingly handsome young CEO in front of her. She had seen him on TV and in newspapers, his name and face often appearing in the media due to his success in leading the company. But she hadn't expected him to be even more handsome in person. Clearing her throat softly, she introduced herself. Good afternoon, Mr. Jeon Jungkook. I'm Park Yin, your psychiatrist. She deliberately refrained from offering a handshake, knowing he would likely refuse. Afternoon, Jungkook replied flatly. For a brief moment, he had been caught off guard by Yin's beauty. She was undeniably stunning. Her neatly tied back hair left a few strands framing her face, perfectly enhancing her delicate features. Jungkook immediately recognized that she was one of the most beautiful women he had ever encountered. Yin smiled again. Today, we'll take things easy. We'll just have a conversation and do a few small exercises. So, Mr. Jeon Jungkook, there's no need to feel nervous or hesitant. Jungkook, just call me Jungkook, he interrupted. Yin's smile widened. As a psychiatrist, she understood the importance of creating a comfortable atmosphere for her patients. Unlike physical illnesses, mental health issues required a space where patients could feel safe enough to open up, without fear of judgment or insecurity. She nodded before continuing her explanation. Misophonia isn't a dangerous condition. It's something that can be managed through gradual exposure and positive reinforcement until it fades away. The first step is for you to trust me. I do trust you, but I want to change how we address each other. I don't like overly formal conversations outside of work, Jungkook stated in his usual flat tone. All right then, Jungkook. Yin adjusted her approach. Can you tell me how your misophonia first started? Please be open with me. As a professional, you can trust me. Jungkook let out a slow breath, pushing aside the documents cluttering his desk. Digging through past memories wasn't something he found easy. Is that necessary? Yin nodded, recognizing the hesitation on his face. She understood why Jungkook was reluctant. It is, so I can determine the right approach moving forward. You need to face this fear, Jungkook. Even just talking about it is already a step toward recovery, she encouraged patiently. Jungkook stared deeply into Yin's eyes. Those clear, light brown eyes were incredibly soothing. He found himself captivated, unable to look away for too long. So, to ease his fear, Jungkook kept his gaze on Yin as he prepared to share his story. In contrast, Yin felt a bit nervous under his intense stare, but she kept her composure. She had to remain professional. I was only 5 years old back then, Jungkook began. It was just me, my mom, and the maids at home because my dad was away on a business trip overseas. That day, I was looking for my mother because I wanted to go out with her. The day before, she had promised to take me to the amusement park. A faint smile appeared on Jungkook's lips, something Yin noticed immediately. But it was like she had vanished into thin air. I searched every corner of the house, but she was nowhere to be found. The maids and guards helped me look for her too. Jungkook glanced at Yin. You already know that my family is involved in the mafia, don't you? Yin nodded. She had done her research on him beforehand. I cried. 3 days passed, and my dad finally returned from overseas, but my mom was still missing. Jungkook clenched his fists, suppressing the pain threatening to surface. Then, 2 days later, while playing in the attic, I found her, lying near the bookshelf. Her body was already covered in maggots. Jungkook closed his eyes, his breathing heavy. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead. Yin immediately grabbed a glass of water from Jungkook's desk and handed it to him. Drink this. Jungkook, you can stop if it's too much, she said gently. Jungkook drank hastily. The trauma resurfaced. Luckily, he had learned to control it over the years. In the past, simply remembering that moment would send him into a screaming fit, breaking things in a frenzy. I can continue, he whispered. He had to. Since that day, I was traumatized. I started seeing everything around me as filthy, covered in germs. I constantly imagined maggots crawling everywhere. I couldn't touch anyone, except my dad. As a mafia family, we had many enemies, and my mom was their target to destroy my dad. What happened to the people who did it? Yin asked curiously. Jungkook let out a scoff, his breathing finally steadying. Of course, my dad wouldn't let them live. They've been dead for a long time. Yin nodded. She didn't want to dig too deep into his painful past. Her focus was on helping him heal. Have you ever tried taking off your gloves and touching objects? Yin asked, glancing at the black gloves covering Jungkook's hands. A bottle of antiseptic sat nearby on the desk. I have, but my body couldn't handle it. I started trembling and nearly fainted. I can't hold anything for more than 3 seconds. What about physical contact with others? No, the mere thought of it disgusts me. Yin nodded and jotted down notes in her small notebook. Then, she looked up and flashed a reassuring smile. For now, I'll prescribe some medication. Yin handed him a prescription. Her handwriting, surprisingly neat for a doctor, was easy to read. Jungkook frowned. That's it? We're done? He sounded almost reluctant. Yin chuckled and shook her head. Of course not. I want you to take off your gloves and try touching some objects around you. For some reason, Jungkook, who was usually so stubborn, found himself complying. Maybe it was because he already trusted Yin, or maybe it was her calm and reassuring presence that made him feel safe. Without another word, he removed his gloves. His hand accidentally brushed against the desk, making him flinch slightly. Yin smiled. Let's start with something you're most familiar with, your phone. How do you know that out of all the things here, my phone is the one I use the most? Jungkook chuckled. Is there anyone in this day and age who isn't familiar with their phone? Especially you, a CEO who's constantly handling business calls and messages, Yin replied confidently. Jungkook smirked slightly, impressed by her quick thinking. He then shifted his gaze to his phone, sitting on the desk in front of him. Closing his eyes briefly, he gathered his courage. His hand reached out hesitantly. Yin waited patiently. Just as his fingertips brushed against the phone, he pulled back immediately. Taking a deep breath, he tried again. This time, he successfully held the phone in his hand. But almost instantly, images of dirt and millions of bacteria flashed through his mind. His hands trembled, cold sweat forming on his skin. His breathing turned ragged. Let go, Yin instructed the moment she noticed his body's reaction. Jungkook let go of the phone harshly, his breathing ragged as his heart pounded in his chest. Without hesitation, he grabbed the antiseptic spray and doused his hands multiple times, rubbing them together with increasing pressure until his skin turned red. Yin watched him with sympathy. It's clean now, Jungkook. You can put your gloves back on, she said gently. If she didn't stop him, his hands might end up raw and injured from how aggressively he was scrubbing them. Hurriedly, Jungkook put his gloves back on, only exhaling in relief once both hands were covered again. Yin offered a small, understanding smile. His condition was severe, but even in the midst of his overwhelming fear, Jungkook still managed to function and interact with those around him. That in itself was admirable. That's enough for today, Yin said. I now have a better idea of what to do next. We'll meet 3 times a week. Do you agree? Jungkook nodded, prompting Yin to smile before continuing. During your treatment, I will always come to your office. If you truly trust me, this process will go smoothly. What you need to believe in your heart is that you will get better. You're strong, Jungkook. You've endured and fought against this condition for over 20 years, she praised sincerely. Warmth spread through Jungkook's chest. Not many people praised him with such genuine sincerity. Most did it out of self-interest. "Thank you. You're really helping me," he said. "I'm just doing my job," Yin replied with a gentle smile. Their eyes met, exchanging a silent understanding before Yin finally broke the gaze and stood to leave. Neither of them knew that this was just the beginning of their story, the start of something neither had expected. After nearly a month of therapy, Jungkook had made noticeable progress. He could now touch familiar objects for more than 10 seconds without wearing gloves. Yin was also very patient and attentive to Jungkook, which made their relationship grow closer and more comfortable. Moreover, their age difference was not significant, only 1 year apart, with Yin being 29, making their conversations easy and natural. Yin clapped her hands excitedly as she watched Jungkook hold a glass for a significant amount of time. Jungkook chuckled, finding her reaction adorable. She looked like a mother watching her baby take its first steps. "Since you've managed to hold that glass, I have a request for you." Jungkook laughed softly. "Shouldn't I be the one asking for a reward for completing this challenge?" Yin grinned. Besides, her request was also for Jungkook's recovery. "Have lunch with me? I already ordered food for us," she said. "You ordered food? From where?" Jungkook asked, a hint of worry in his voice. Yin smiled, knowing his concerns. "Don't worry, I ordered from your usual place, so you don't have to be afraid that it's dirty." Her reassurance made Jungkook sigh in relief. He still couldn't eat just anywhere. Yin glanced at her watch. "It's lunchtime. Kai should be here soon." "Since when did my assistant become yours too?" Jungkook teased. Ever since Yin started visiting his office regularly, the once cold Jungkook had become warm. He no longer snapped at his employees. As long as Yin was around, Jungkook's mood was always good, which also affected his behavior toward his staff. "I just wanted to know what it feels like to have a personal assistant," Yin chuckled. "Just for a while." Jungkook laughed along. He didn't mind at all. In fact, he felt happy that he could be useful to Yin. Not long after, Kai arrived with 2 food boxes. Jungkook shook his head in amazement. Yin had even ordered his favorite dish. How did she know? "Let's eat," Yin said enthusiastically. "But don't wear your gloves," she quickly added when Jungkook reached for them. "Use the spoon with your bare hands. This is part of the next step in your therapy, getting used to handling objects without gloves." But Yin could see Jungkook's hesitation and gently reassured him. "Just try it first. If it gets too overwhelming, you can take a break and continue when you feel better. But try not to wear the gloves. Can you do that?" Her soft voice and calm expression made Jungkook smile faintly. He nodded, looking at the food in front of him before finally picking up the spoon, and he did it. Although he paused a few times, Jungkook managed to finish his meal without wearing gloves. He felt incredibly happy, his face glowing with pride. "I never thought I'd actually be able to eat without gloves," Jungkook said in awe of himself after finishing his meal. "Yes, you did it," Yin laughed happily, thrilled with Jungkook's progress. She extended her hand toward him. "Now, shake my hand. Let's congratulate you properly." "Huh?" Jungkook blinked in confusion. "You've successfully touched objects without gloves. Now, you should practice touching another person besides your dad. Come on," Yin encouraged, bringing her hand closer. Jungkook hesitated, staring at both Yin's hand and her face. Seeing her smile and nod, he finally gathered the courage to accept her handshake. Strangely, he didn't feel disgusted when their skin touched, and when he slowly tightened his grip, he didn't feel anxious or afraid at all. Yin's soft skin made him linger in the handshake longer than he intended. The touch sent warmth through both of them. Their eyes met, filled with unspoken emotions. The atmosphere suddenly became awkward, and Yin was the first to pull away, her face slightly flushed. She cleared her throat, trying to shake off the awkwardness. "Your progress is faster than I expected. I'm really happy that you can now touch someone other than your dad. If you keep going like this, you'll fully recover in no time. Once you get used to me and your father, you can try it with others too." Jungkook was silent for a moment. "But sometimes the nightmares still haunt me." "But they're less frequent now, right?" Jungkook nodded. It was true. His nightmares weren't as frequent as before. "It's been almost 2 hours. I have to go now, and you need to get back to work." Jungkook smiled. "Yeah, thanks for today. You, take care." He watched as Yin's figure slowly disappeared from sight. For the first time, he felt a fluttering in his chest. Yin, a beautiful psychiatrist he had only known for less than 2 months, had somehow made her way into his heart. Jungkook would have to thank his father for bringing Yin into his life. Without realizing it, Jungkook's recovery process had reached its final session. He had made remarkable progress, he could now live normally and even better than before. For this last session, Yin invited Jungkook for a weekend outing. That was why, since early morning, Jungkook had been busy preparing for his first date with Yin. He carefully picked out his best outfit and cologne, feeling like a teenager experiencing his first love. Similarly, at her apartment, Yin's room looked like a disaster zone. She had taken out all her clothes, struggling to decide what to wear. At exactly 9 a.m., Jungkook arrived at Yin's apartment to pick her up. They spent the drive chatting lightly, accompanied by soft music playing in the background. Jungkook had no idea where Yin was taking him. He simply followed her directions, turning when she told him to, going straight when she asked. But as they entered their destination, Jungkook turned to Yin, his face filled with uncertainty. "Yin, are you seriously taking me here?" he asked, worried. "Yes, I'm serious," Yin replied enthusiastically. "This is one of the final steps in your therapy, Jungkook. You've learned to touch objects, and you've even managed to touch me. And now it's time for you to interact with animals," Yin announced. Yes, she had brought Jungkook to the zoo, a place he had never imagined stepping into. "But Yin, the zoo is filthy. What if we accidentally step on animal droppings? And those animals, they probably don't bathe often," Jungkook protested, his anxiety rising. Yin chuckled, amused by his reaction. "Jungkook, all the animals are kept in enclosures. They won't just relieve themselves anywhere. And as for bathing," she held back another laugh. "I don't know if they do it every day, but I'm sure they're regularly cleaned and taken care of." "But Yin," Jungkook still hesitated. Just imagining himself inside the zoo made his stomach churn. "I'm here, Jungkook. You can hold my hand if you're scared," Yin reassured him. At that moment, Jungkook's fear and anxiety lessened. "Really? I can hold your hand the whole time?" "Of course," Yin answered firmly. Taking a deep breath, Jungkook finally nodded. He had to do this. He had to get better. But it turned out to be much harder than he had anticipated. Even with Yin holding his hand, the moment they stepped past the zoo's entrance, Jungkook felt an intense dizziness. His stomach churned violently. In the end, he threw up. Yin patiently rubbed his back and gently stroked his head. She knew this reaction was completely normal for someone struggling with misophonia. "Yin, are you sure I can do this?" Jungkook asked weakly. His face had turned pale, and in his hand was an isotonic drink Yin had bought for him earlier. "I'm sure you can, Jungkook. This reaction is completely normal for you. You trust me, right?" Yin smiled, extending her hand toward him. The man nodded. He accepted Yin's hand without hesitation. Throughout the walk, Jungkook held onto Yin's hand tightly. Their bodies were so close that it was clear Jungkook didn't want to be apart from her. Time and again, he exhaled harshly, feeling like giving up, but Yin always managed to reassure him that he could do it. "Come on, Jungkook, try touching this bird. It's not aggressive at all. Its feathers are really soft," Yin encouraged. She was holding a beautiful white bird in her hands. Jungkook shook his head firmly. Earlier, Yin had asked him to hold a rabbit, and of course, he had refused. He could already imagine the countless germs on his hands, but Yin had convinced him with her usual words. "You want to get better, don't you? Try it slowly. You're strong, Jungkook. You have to overcome your fears, for yourself and for the people you love." And so, Jungkook obeyed, even though he only held the rabbit for a brief moment before quickly letting go because of his nausea. He still tried. Now, Yin was asking him to touch the bird. It was indeed beautiful, but Jungkook still couldn't push away his negative thoughts. But with Yin's gentle persuasion and her sweet smile, Jungkook reluctantly gave it a try. And just like before, he ended up vomiting again. "He's not fully healed yet," Yin murmured sadly as she watched Jungkook rush into the restroom. "If only I had more time, I would stay with you until you're completely cured, Jungkook." But her contract with Gi-hoon had ended. At least Jungkook could now touch a woman, which meant he was ready for marriage. That had been Gi-hoon's main goal in hiring her. A sense of unease and emptiness settled in Yin's heart. Would Jungkook get married after this? Just the thought of it made Yin's chest tighten. But what could she do? If the woman was kind and Jungkook loved her, Yin would have to be happy for him. "I heard from Yin that you can touch women now?" Gi-hoon asked while they played golf together. Jungkook mumbled unenthusiastically. He had been forced to accompany his father to play golf. It had been a week since Yin took him to the zoo, and he hadn't seen her since. Of course, their therapy sessions had ended, but Jungkook couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. "So that means you're ready for marriage, right?" Gi-hoon looked at his only son with excitement. "No, Dad, I don't want to get married. Jungkook replied flatly, placing his golf club down and sitting on a bench. Gi-hoon was taken aback, his temper flaring at Jungkook's response. You don't want to get married? He immediately walked over to Jungkook, glaring at him. Then why the hell did I go to such great lengths to find you the best psychiatrist? He shouted. His loud voice caught the attention of some guards, but none of them dared to interfere in the father-son dispute. I wanted you to get better, to get married, and to have children. Gi-hoon fumed. If Jungkook refused to marry, then all of his efforts would have been for nothing. Dad, let me explain. I don't want to get married. Are you trying to destroy our family, Jungkook? Gi-hoon cut him off before he could finish. Who will take over our business if you don't have children, huh? His anger had reached its peak. Dad, listen to me. Jungkook shot back, just as frustrated. Gi-hoon exhaled sharply, trying to rein in his temper. He closed his eyes for a moment before speaking. Fine, what do you want to say? Jungkook met his father's gaze with determination. He had to make his intentions clear now. I won't get married unless it's to Yin. I love her, and I will only marry her, he emphasized. Not anyone else. Gi-hoon was stunned. His anger dissipated instantly. You like Yin? Jungkook nodded. He had fallen for her. Their time together had allowed love to take root in his heart quickly. He wanted to be by her side always. The thought of Yin with another man was unbearable. Gi-hoon chuckled, amused. He had been moments away from disowning Jungkook if he truly refused marriage. Yin is a good girl. She's beautiful and full of spirit. No wonder you fell for her, he teased. Jungkook cleared his throat awkwardly, making Gi-hoon even more amused. I approve of you and Yin. Go after her, win her heart and marry her as soon as possible. You approve? Jungkook asked, needing confirmation. Of course, I support you and Yin. Jungkook let out a relieved sigh. He had expected a dramatic rejection from his father. He never thought his father would agree so easily. Now, his next challenge was convincing Yin to marry him. After a week without seeing each other, Jungkook sent Yin a message last night, asking to meet at a restaurant. There's something important I want to tell you. That was the content of Jungkook's message. But now, nearly 10 minutes had passed since they sat down, and he still hadn't said a word. Yin's mind was racing. Since Jungkook remained silent, she started speculating on her own. A thought crossed her mind. What if Jungkook had invited her here to tell her he was getting married? After all, Gi-hoon's main goal in hiring Yin as Jungkook's psychiatrist was to help him overcome his aversion to touch, so he could eventually marry. And now, Jungkook could touch women. Jungkook was nervous. He exhaled deeply several times, but he knew he had to speak now. Yin, there's something I need to tell you. Actually, Are you getting married, Jungkook? Yin cut him off. Jungkook froze. Why are you asking that? You can touch women now, which means you'll be getting married soon, Yin replied, not realizing how melancholic her voice had become. Who is she? Did you bring me here to introduce her to me? She must be really beautiful and kind if you're marrying her, right? Yin fired off question after question, rambling nonsense. Her mind was in complete chaos. Jungkook blinked, then let out a small laugh. Yin was so cute. It was obvious she was anxious about him getting married. Did she feel the same way about him? Just the thought of it made his heart swell with happiness. I do want to get married, Yin, and that beautiful, kind woman is sitting right in front of me, he answered calmly. Huh? Yin was shocked. The usually smart girl suddenly found herself unable to think. What do you mean? Jungkook chuckled again, his hand gently stroking Yin's. He was no longer wearing gloves. I want to marry you, Yin. Will you? Yin blinked in confusion. Why me? Why are you asking me to marry you? She asked dumbly. Because I love you, Jungkook said, making her freeze. Being close to you all this time made me fall for you. I want to spend my life with you. Only you, not anyone else. Are you serious, Jungkook? Yin still couldn't believe it. Even though she could easily see the sincerity in his eyes, she needed to hear it again. I'm serious, Yin. I never play around with my feelings, especially when it comes to marriage. So, what's your answer? After recovering from her shock, Yin let out a soft giggle. So, you're proposing to me right now? Her heart pounded in her chest, butterflies fluttering in her stomach. Jungkook nodded enthusiastically. Yes, I'm proposing to you, he admitted shyly, making Yin find him even more endearing. I don't know how to propose to a woman in a romantic way, so I'm sorry if this isn't special. It doesn't have to be romantic. What matters is the answer, Yin said with a sweet smile. That's right. So, what's your answer, Yin? Jungkook asked impatiently. Smiling softly, Yin nodded, her face glowing with happiness. I do. Jungkook, I love you too. I thought my feelings were one-sided. I'm so relieved they're not. And the fact that you want to take this to the next level makes me even happier. Jungkook let out a deep breath of relief, a warm rush of emotion filling his chest. He grinned widely, taking Yin's hand and kissing it over and over. Thank you, Yin. Thank you. I'll do my best to be a good husband for you. Yin nodded, their smiles mirroring each other's joy. They gazed at one another with love and longing. At Jungkook's request, since he couldn't wait to make Yin his, the wedding would take place in just a month, and Yin agreed. 1 month later, Jungkook woke up in the middle of the night, another nightmare. His breath was ragged, and sweat covered his face. Beside him, Yin stirred awake as well. Another nightmare, honey? She asked softly. Jungkook turned to her and nodded. Come here. Yin opened her arms, inviting him into her embrace. Without hesitation, Jungkook wrapped his arms around her, burying his face in the crook of her neck. He inhaled her familiar scent, the one that always calmed him down. He was incredibly lucky to have Yin. It had been 2 weeks since they got married, and he no longer needed medication for his nightmares. Just being in his wife's arms was enough to bring him peace. Thank you, baby, Jungkook murmured sincerely. Loosening his embrace, he gazed at Yin with tenderness. His wife was incredibly kind and patient. Even after nearly 2 weeks of marriage, she never pressured him when he wasn't ready to be intimate. She understood his situation better than anyone. Jungkook reached out to caress Yin's cool cheek, his touch gentle. The soft blush that appeared on her face made her look even more beautiful under the dim bedroom light. I'm sorry for making you wait so long, he finally said, his voice firm with resolution. Sorry for what? Yin asked, confused. For not being able to be with you like that right after we got married. Jungkook, we've talked about this. I don't mind. We can wait until you're ready. I know your past. I understand you better than anyone, so you don't have to worry. Jungkook gazed at her with warmth. I'm ready now, he finally admitted. Yin blinked rapidly. Are you serious, Jungkook? She asked, still in disbelief. I don't want you to do this just because you feel pressured. I don't want you to do it out of pity for me. I truly don't mind waiting, so don't worry about me. No, baby, I'm not forcing myself. I'm really ready, and I want you. Jungkook's eyes darkened with desire. Yin could see the passion swirling in them. His gaze flickered down to her thin nightgown with its low neckline. For a moment, Jungkook licked his lips, sending shivers down her spine. How could I not want you? You're so beautiful and sexy, he said, his voice husky. Yin couldn't respond. Her mind went blank, especially when Jungkook leaned down and pressed his lips to the side of her neck, grazing his teeth against her skin before sucking on it gently. Yin tilted her head back, feeling a thrilling sensation she had never experienced before. A pleasant warmth coiled in her stomach. Jungkook lifted his head, his eyes heavy with desire. Before we do this tonight, I have one request. What is it? Yin asked, her voice breathless just as Jungkook's hands gripped her waist and kissed her bare shoulder. Don't ever ask me to touch anyone else again. I only want to touch you. I don't need to touch anyone besides you and my dad, Jungkook whispered into her ear before giving her earlobe a light bite. Yin nodded, unable to think straight anymore. She was already lost in the moment. The way Jungkook kissed her lips and touched her body sent waves of pleasure through her. He knew exactly how to make her melt. And just like that, the two of them lost themselves in each other, savoring the long night until morning. Weeks passed, and Jungkook's condition improved significantly. Yin could confidently say that he was healed. He had even adopted an adorable cat that had become his favorite pet. Jungkook enjoyed playing with it every day. As he requested, Yin no longer asked him to get used to touching others. Now, the only one he ever touched was her. They also made love whenever they had the chance, not just in their bedroom, but also in the kitchen, the swimming pool, the living room, the bathroom, and even in Jungkook's office. 5 months later, Yin found out she was pregnant. The news was met with overwhelming joy from everyone, including Gahoon. Finally, he could breathe easily, knowing he would have an heir to carry on the family legacy.